Well, hello everybody. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Norma Carpio, and welcome to MP Shaun Chen's celebration of Filipino Heritage Month. My name is Norma Carpio. I'm a proud Filipino, and I'm so happy to be here today. I'm your proud MC today, and we're going to have a great program. MP Shaun Chen's team have prepared a great show today, so it's going to be very exciting. June 12th marked the 123rd Philippine Independence Day, a recognition of the Filipino community's strength and freedom. During Filipino Heritage Month, we join the nearly 1 million Filipinos across the country in recognizing their contributions to Canada. Throughout the pandemic, Filipinos have kept the Bayanihan spirit alive by working tirelessly to support this country. And it's so important for us to recognize those contributions to Canada. Throughout the pandemic, Filipinos have kept the Bayanihan spirit alive, and we keep working together, and we don't let things like the pandemic stop us from gathering together and celebrating our culture and heritage. Let's begin now with a trip down to memory lane and watch the slideshow together. What a great slideshow. Thank you so much for that. I actually recognize some of those events, and I can't wait to get back into in-person events again. We would have our Filipino festival every year, hundreds and thousands of Filipinos gathering in Toronto. I cannot wait. Although we can't be physically together at this time, we certainly look forward to the day when we can all safely gather again in person. So thank you for that slideshow. What a great start to the show. And now we will see a musical cover by one of my favorite singers in the Filipino community. I've known these women for so long. They always perform and participate in our community events, and we're so happy to have them a part of this virtual celebration. We have Shirel, Jennifer, and Josie to sing a song called Isang Mundo, Isang Awit by Lea Navarro.
Bawat puso ay marunong
Wow, I love that performance. Uh, what a great, talented group of women. Thank you, Shirelle, Jennifer, Josie, for that beautiful performance. What a way to start this show. As we all know, the Philippines is a diverse, as it is beautiful. I know because I was born and raised in the Philippines, and one of our greatest cultural experts is our cuisine, full of delicious foods that everyone can enjoy. And one of our most famous dishes, one of my favorites, is adobo. So each region has its own variation of it, but we can all agree that it tastes amazing. And we will now show a video on how to make a delicious batch of adobo demonstrated by Mila Nabor, Coach Shaun, CEO of Casa Manila. And Casa Manila is a Filipino restaurant in Toronto and one of my favorites as well. I love that restaurant, which believes in serving authentic Filipino dishes using fresh ingredients in their nature to nurture philosophy. And this clip was also featured on the TV show You Gotta Eat Here by Food Network Canada with host John Catucci. Ladies and gentlemen, the video.
Of our boneless dark meat, cider vinegar, light soy sauce,
Okay.
lots of garlic, red onions, black pepper, and then our bay leaf. Cover it up to marinate overnight.
Okay, so what do we do now?
Our national dish, the chicken adobo.
Let's do this.
Okay, vegetable oil, minced garlic, ginger, marinated chicken. This is the liquid from the marination.
Okay.
Chicken stock. Cover and we wait.
Sweet.
Add this brown sugar, chicken liver. It gives the sauce a richer taste.
Sure.
Dark soy sauce. You need a little bit of color.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm so hungry right now. Not only adobo was featured in that video, was it's also halo halo, one of my favorite desserts, and I am totally craving that right now. Thank you so much, Mila, for showing us that video. And it is my pleasure to now introduce your Member of Parliament, Shaun Chen, who has been a wonderful advocate for the Filipino community here in Scarborough North and beyond. Hi, MP Shaun.
Thank you so much, Christina, for that wonderful and kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shaun Chen. I'm the Member of Parliament here in Scarborough North, and I want to thank all of you so very much for joining us today here in our virtual Filipino Heritage Month celebration, including many special guests, our guest speakers, and of course, the wonderful segments you just saw, and our MC. Can we just give Christina a round of applause. I think she's doing a fantastic job as our MC. I can see the hands moving. Unfortunately, most of you are on mute, but I want to begin also by acknowledging that we are here on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now also home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Now, as you may all already know, June is Filipino Heritage Month in Canada. And it was only in October 2018, nearly 3 years ago, that I was proud to rise in the House in support of this motion, Motion 155, to establish the month of June as Filipino Heritage Month in Canada, which was championed by my friend and colleague, the Honorable Member for Scarborough Centre, Salma Zahid. And it serves truly to acknowledge the tremendous contributions of Canadians of Filipino descent to our country. Nearly 1 million strong, as Christina mentioned, the Filipino community has become one of the fastest growing communities in Canada, and it enriches our national fabric. It plays a pivotal role in strengthening that diversity. And as well, people of Filipino descent in Canada play an important role to strengthen the bonds between Canada and the Philippines. Of course, Filipino Heritage Month is an opportunity for us to learn, to recognize the Filipino community here in Canada, to explore the culture, like the delicious food we just experienced, but more importantly, to also recognize the important and invaluable role that Filipinos play in helping to build this open, diverse, and inclusive society that we value so much. This month celebrates indeed the depth of Filipinos' culture and the richness of their languages, and ensures that future generations never lose sight of how important it is for all of us, no matter where we are born or where our ancestors are born, that we reflect upon our roots, their stories, and remember the challenges that previous generations lived through, and as well celebrate the incredible victories. It is with great pleasure for me to reflect on the roles and contributions of Canadians of Filipino descent today at this event. They have done so much across the country, including on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. During these unprecedented times, we all know how difficult and challenging the past year has been. It certainly has been for me, for my team, for all Canadians. But we know that as one diverse Canadian family, we stand together shoulder to shoulder, especially in these difficult times. And in these challenging moments, we have been confronted with increasing hate. We have confronted the rise of anti-Asian racism during the pandemic. But as well, we have seen anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism play out, anti-Semitism, and most recently, Islamophobia with the horrific attack against an innocent Muslim family in London, Ontario that left 4 people dead. You know, we must always make it clear that xenophobia, fear, and hatred have no place in Canada. And I know that the Filipino community expresses that view very strongly. So today I'm joined by 3 amazing panelists who I have had to, over the years, gotten to know very well. And I look forward to having a very meaningful discussion today on Filipino identity, on representation of the community, on anti-Asian racism. We have Norma Carpio, founder and chairman of the Mabuhay Philippines Festival and chairman emeritus of the Philippine Independence Day Council. Those were the titles that I was received. My goodness, Norma, you have so much on your plate. We have Garry Tanuan, my former trustee counterpart, because we used to be trustees. He was the Catholic trustee, I was the public trustee, but we still work in the same area, and it's a pleasure to have Garry Tanuan here, our local school board trustee on the Toronto Catholic District School Board. And right across the street from our constituency office here in Scarborough North is in fact the Filipino Centre Toronto. They moved here just a few years ago, and I was so delighted because we've had many events there, and in fact we had a Filipino Heritage Month celebration there, and we were able to order some of that delicious food, adobo chicken. I got to remember that. We got to try cooking that for next year's celebration. Hopefully we'll all be in person, but we're very honored and pleased to have its president and CEO of the Filipino Centre Toronto, Ann San Juan. So we have some discussions coming up with these amazing community leaders, and I'm looking forward to learning. I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I want to thank all of you who are tuned in today on Zoom, on Facebook Live, for joining us, and I look forward to today's discussion.
Thank you, MP Chen. Let me just say sincere thanks for your continued support of the Filipino community. I've seen you at our events for so many years. You're always there to support us. I want to thank you for that very important message as well about diversity, and how events like this are so important to really understand the importance of celebrating our culture. Many different cultures here in Canada. So thank you so much for that very important message. And before we begin the panel, I just want to introduce our esteemed panelists. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Norma Carpio, founder and chairman of the Mabuhay Philippines Festival and chairman of the emeritus of the Philippine Independence Day Council. I know she has many titles, like you said, MP Chen. Ms. Ann San Juan, President and CEO of the Filipino Centre Toronto, and Garry Tanuan, trustee with the Toronto Catholic District School Board. I want to pass it on to you guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and let's have a great panel.
Thank you again, Christina. All right, let's start off the discussion here today with the theme of Filipino identity. As Canadians, we are very proud of our roots, and especially the diversity in communities like Scarborough North. And I just want to share a quick statistic that some people might not know. Scarborough North has 91% racialized population. According to the last census, 91% identified in the census as visible minorities. And that is in fact the highest in the country. So we have such great diversity in our communities, and we get to explore and learn about that. My question to the panelists is, how is your Filipino identity and culture important to you, and how do we preserve this for the next generation? Because I was born here, but my parents are born and raised in India. My grandparents are originally from China, so I often say I'm a Canadian of Chinese descent and Indian heritage, and many first-generation Canadians of Filipino descent will find themselves straddled between their cultures and identities. So why is that important that we preserve our roots and understand where we come from and the struggles of previous generations? Marianne, do you wanna tackle that? Can I put you on the spotlight, Marianne?
Yeah. For me, why do we have to preserve that? Because it's who we are, and we cannot just eliminate that from our personality. It's who we are and what we can share with the whole community, because we are such a highly diverse community. So it's sharing that information. It's also accepting. Because that's what we are here in Canada. We live in a diverse community, and we are all equal. And by showing that, that's why we have these events to show to the rest of your community our culture, our traditions, whatever we can share. And it's the same thing as well. We accept what they have. It's a matter of sharing, and it's a matter of understanding. It's a matter of knowing who each of us is.
Thank you, Marianne. I think that's incredibly insightful. You mentioned the word accept who we are. And I wanna turn perhaps to another of the panelists. What does acceptance mean to you? Do you find that because we are here in Canada, and because there is racism, there is discrimination, there is xenophobia, we are oftentimes not part of that mainstream identity of what it means to be Canadian? Does that cause problems for our younger generation, for example, to really accept who they are, because they are at the same time trying to fit in into the dominant Canadian culture? Perhaps I can turn to Garry. Garry, you are in the school board and work with a lot of young people, or perhaps I can go to Christina if you want to even reflect and share on some of your own experiences. But happy to pass it to one of you.
Yes, thank you, MP Shaun Chen. And I want to thank you, first of all, for hosting this event, as well as we've seen in your presentation, the multitude of events that you have helped us through the Filipino community in the last few years. You've been to more events, as I was saying, than I have been to many Filipino events. So that's what speaks volumes of your wholehearted support.
I normally see you there, Garry, so I think it's the same amount.
No. Anyway, regarding that, I think the Filipino Canadians that were born here has an easier time, like my own kids. They have easier to integrate. I see the students coming from the Philippines and other places have a harder time adjusting because they don't know the culture here. And like what Marianne said, the integration and who we are, right? Even my own kids have struggled because the people and students ask him, peers, saying, where do you come from? Or where is your background? And they'll say, well, I have Chinese and Filipino. So they really are a bit confused. So like you, I'm of Chinese descent, born into a Filipino heritage. So that, when I first came here, I had to struggle with that as well. But over time, I think the Toronto, Canada is a very accepting and very open place. But like you said, and I applaud you and laud you for your efforts on your call against xenophobia and all this anti-racism, not only for Asians, but for Black as well. And I think that helps. First of all, awareness. We have to put it out there, right? Because if we don't talk about it, then people won't know how we feel, right? Like we have to walk in the shoes, people who've been there. And I think all of us here in this panel and our viewers will resonate with that we have indeed come a long way, but there's really more to be done, as we have seen in the news. Very sad things are happening. And I just want to say this. We've had the once in a lifetime quincentennial jubilee, the arrival of Christianity in the Philippines. We call it QJCP. That's a big thing for all of us Filipinos because I believe our who we are, our identity, are rooted in the Catholic Christian faith. It was given to us 500 years ago. And at Toronto Catholic, the Gifted to Give theme for the Quincentennial Jubilee has been adopted as the main theme for our Filipino Heritage Month this year, as it resonates very well with the Filipino Canadian folks when we give back and share with everyone that gift of faith which we were blessed with half a millennium ago. And to me, that's important because as the Filipino diaspora here, especially in our Catholic School Board, is now the largest ethnic group within the TCDSB family of schools, with more than 30,000 students, representing 1 of 3 in our Catholic students. So when you talk about the recognition Filipino Heritage Month, which you have so graciously promoted, and Bill 155 and provincial just passed 217 and all that, that's very important and significant to all of us, so we can provide our Filipino Canadian youth the opportunity to understand and connect to their roots and enrich our school communities with the sharing of our faith culture, and traditions with others. I firmly believe that the greatest aspect of our Filipino heritage is that our Christian faith and values has been firmly intertwined and has become very much an integral part of our culture and tradition over the centuries. So this worldwide celebration, the 500-year anniversary of Christianity in the Philippines, is a huge testament to who we are today and what comes as second nature to us when we're doing our best and all we can do to help others in need, especially in this time of crisis in the healthcare, frontline workers, and education service sectors. So I think that's the reason why we're here today, and we're here given the gift, and we have to share that gift to others. So I'm
Thank you,
thankful for
Gary.
that.
You certainly are absolutely right. Faith is such an important part of the Filipino community and a part of so many communities in Canada. And you threw out that question there, where are you from? Christina, have you ever been asked, where are you from? When people ask me, I say, I'm from Scarborough. I
Yeah.
don't know how else to answer that question.
From here.
Christina, I'm sure people have asked you, and
Yeah.
how do you answer a question like that?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Gary before I answer that question. MP Chen, you've been such a strong advocate for students since you became a part of the Toronto Catholic District School Board. Thank you so much for inspiring the next generation of Filipino Canadians. We really appreciate the work that you do. I was born in the Philippines. I came to Canada at 16 years old and by myself on a student visa. I wasn't immediately a Canadian. So I kind of, I understand what Gary's saying. His Canadian kids may not have the same experiences as somebody who, like me, came to Canada on my own. And, I had to really I read the English dictionary over and over again to learn so I can to speak English well and so that I can fit in. And a lot of my experiences here, it wasn't easy. It's been quite a journey coming to Canada, adjusting to the new life. I didn't even know what Canada was, to be honest with you. I was like, where am I going? Oh, it's I just went because it's to escape poverty from the Philippines and start a new life here. I happen to have an aunt who sponsored me on a student visa, and then so I had to work really hard, and it's been quite a journey. So I'm grateful to be a part of this community, because this community has really helped me since I got here to really be strong and to really have people around me to help me adjust to this new life. And just basically like now I have a child and she's Canadian and she's got so many opportunities that I never experienced when I first came here. So it's completely different, but really the importance of celebrating our culture is so important. I always have her take part in community events that I participate in so she can understand and learn about our heritage, because she wasn't born in the Philippines, she was born here. So cut the story short, I'm here now. I'm a Canadian and I'm so proud to be Filipino Canadian, and really grateful for events like this to really understand where we're from.
Beautifully said. And it's just ironic sometimes, because no matter where you are born, whether you're born here or somewhere else, as a racialized face, we get that question all the time: where are you from? And I would not be surprised, and I hopefully that culture changes, but I would not be surprised if your daughter Christina grows up and somebody along the way in her schooling says to her, well, where are you from? And I think this is where that we ought to be very proud of our roots. And one way to learn about our roots is through the community. You mentioned the community is so strong, and Garry, Trustee Tanuan, mentioned that the community is 1/3 of the Toronto Catholic School Board. So that is no longer visible minority. That is getting closer and closer to majority. One of the ways that we have been able to celebrate our culture, our roots, and identity is through that community. And I want to go to Norma, because Norma, you founded the Mabuhay Philippine Festival, and that's one of the largest community festivals in Canada. What prompted you to begin this program? and what were you hoping to accomplish and achieve?
Okay, thank you, Sean. You know, you're one of my favorite MP, as you know that. And and to my fellow Garry, of course. I don't know, the last time we were together is at the consulate, I think. And same thing with Mary. You know, I miss you all, and I wish this COVID-19 will be over, and looking forward to see you all in person. It is such an honor and privilege to have been chosen to speak to you about topics very close to my heart. Regarding the pandemic, people don't realize the value of blessings received until they are cut off. COVID-19 made us realize that in a number of ways. The global pandemic made us miss the family, the community, the physical interaction we got used to enjoy as we merged into isolation. Not only were we felt threatened by the COVID-19 virus and the more aggressive variants, but the daily news of illness and death generated so much fear. The reference where the origin of the virus triggered dismay that eventually turned into hate, not only to Chinese, but to Asians as a whole. We hear news about Asian hate incidents here and especially in our neighboring USA. I encourage our leaders to promote unity, not hate, love, not war. Currently, Canada is among the countries ahead of the race towards having the population vaccinated. What a relief that our COVID case numbers had been on a downtrend. With the government's aggressive campaign to inject needles to our arms, I feel confident that we are heading to brighter, safer days ahead. One topic which is very dear to me is our rich and vibrant culture and heritage. Though I live in Canada for most of my life, I never forget to look back and pay homage to my home, the Philippines. That is why in 1998, Mabuhay Philippines was born. We wanted to showcase our history, arts, music, and dances and make Filipino Canadians proud of their heritage. So let me take this opportunity to thank the government leaders who supported and recognized the contribution of the Filipino people. The pandemic made Canadians realize that it's rare for a medical facility to not have a Filipino nurse, doctor, or healthcare staff working in there. The pandemic elevated the image of Filipino healthcare workers from assets they are now recognized as heroes. And on our way to recovery, we made forward to our Mabuhay Philippine Festivals, which PIDC and our community have missed. We will endeavor not only to bring back the fun and enjoyment in the community, but promote racial harmony through our festival. Whether you are Filipino, Chinese, West, or East Indians, or of any other culture, we live in one soil. We are all Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. Beautifully said. And I love how you talked about the contributions of Canadians of Filipino descent during this pandemic, because the community has done so much on the front lines and stepped up in this fight in so many ways. I know there's been so many incredible contributions, and you know I want to acknowledge. I know you're also here representing PIDC, and there are a number of executive members here from PIDC. So I just want to acknowledge them because I see them in the chat room, in the participant list. So thank you all for being here, for the work that you do. And speaking of that, so much has happened on the front lines. Mary Ann, can you talk about the importance of those incredible contributions and how we must recognize that, especially given this rise in anti-Asian racism, where people of Asian identity, of particularly East Asian identity, have been targeted, and a lot of that has been based on the rhetoric and the rise of that sort of really hateful narrative, and I feel that it's so destructive. Yet at the same time, the Filipino community and other East Asian communities have done so much in the fight against COVID. So Marianne, can you talk about that importance
Okay.
of celebrating those contributions?
I've just gathered some statistics, which I'm going to read out about the Filipino contributions to the pandemic situation. And these are great figures. 1 in 20 healthcare workers are Filipinos. 1 in 20 in Canada. 1/3 of internationally trained nurses in Canada are from the Philippines. And these are current sources. 90% of migrant caregivers, those who are providing home care under the Canadian Caregiver Program, are Filipinos. It is not only those areas, but Filipinos, they're all frontline workers. They are in the service industry. They report to work daily. They don't work at home, as well as manufacturers. A lot of Filipinos work in the manufacturing industry, and those workers as well do not work from home. They go to work every day. So it's not only the healthcare workers, it's a large population of Canadian workforce that are Filipinos.
That is incredible statistics, Marianne, and we all need to know and celebrate those contributions, because we have seen the statistics on the other end of hate. The Chinese Canadian National Council released a report earlier this year, and they documented over 1,100 incidents of violence and attacks against Canadians of Asian descent.
Yeah.
And over 90% of those attacks were targeted against Asians of East Asian descent. And that is truly unfathomable in this day and age, yet we are almost like turning back the time, the clock, and seeing now that violence. I think we all just gasped when the elderly grandma was punched in the face walking on the sidewalk.
Yes.
And incidents of people of Asian descent being spit on, being blamed for the pandemic, kung flu, and all types of other inappropriate words being used against the community. How do we begin to address this? You know, we have all worked together as Canadians to fight the pandemic. We have been working in all sectors, as Marianne said, in healthcare, but indeed in so many other areas where essential and frontline workers have really just bared the burden of this pandemic. Garry, I think education is so important as well, right? When we talk about fighting racism. Garry, can you speak to perhaps some of the work in education around this, and how can that make a difference in fighting anti-Asian racism?
Thank you, Shaun, for that, and I thank my colleagues here in this panel. Like they're outstanding leaders, like Norma and Marianne, outstanding leaders and pillars of our Filipino community. So thank you for your work. Recently we created the what we call the Race Relations Committee at the school board. And here, I'll give you a plain example. I don't think this is intentional. Okay, so when there was a call for members of the Race Relations Committee, and so I got the highest votes, of course, being the only minority there, 10 votes. So, okay, and then for some reason, other members were selected, and then we said we we're gonna postpone the election, right? So the next meeting, my name was never mentioned. And I just sat there. I said, I'll wait until the end and see if they recognize that they voted 10 votes and nobody else had more than 10. They had like 5. And true enough, many more members want to join. Now there's an overflowing number of members in the race relations. So I stood up, I said, I was the one who, proposed this. And now I'm not going to be in this committee. And they said, oh, and suddenly there was silence, right? So this just proves to you that it's not a conscious, this is like unconscious bias, right? That people carry around. And then, oh, we're sorry, and we're going to elect you chair of the Race Relations Committee. I said, okay, thank you. But see, that's just a classic example, right, of they're not intentionally, but the systemic racism that's carried over the centuries. And many of our staff have taken courses and read books on deep diversity and all that. But the most important thing is that Harvard test, like one of our former superintendent, he's retired now. He said, I took the test, you should take the test as well. It's a very short test, very little time for, bias, because they have a test where are your biases? And he said, yep, at the end of the test, I'm very biased to European white individuals, meaning if two of equal caliber comes in, he will choose the European white person, right? So that is the problem. And he acknowledges it. We need more of our staff, our teachers, our students to recognize that. Because as part of education, and like Shaun is very familiar with this, coming from the education background, we need to let people understand it, especially for people who are not familiar with the outside of the North American Eurocentric culture. So, Shaun became the chair of the TDSB. We are still waiting for one chair to appear, right? There are probably many chairs there, but look at the picture, they're all Eurocentric, North American white, and mostly men. Now we're going to have more women now. So I think that's the awareness that we have to build up. And I thank all of you for advocating, and I see many people here in this forum as well.
Gary, you've got my vote. You've got my vote, hands down. And I have to say, what you shared was so incredibly powerful. What you just shared, it really is, because we often say that Canada is a diverse, inclusive, multicultural country, and I certainly believe that the vast majority of Canadians aspire to that concept, but it is ultimately an ideal. And ideals don't necessarily play out in reality. And it's only by hearing the lived realities and the experiences of people of color that we are able to compare that set of ideals to experiences that don't match. And that experience, that unconscious bias that Gary experienced and saw play out, and that was shared with him, is truly what we mean when we talk about systemic racism, institutionalized bias. When we talk about that bamboo ceiling, that concept of a bamboo ceiling where we are faced with stereotypes as people of Asian descent, that we are supposed to be quiet and we're supposed to be, good at math and just, do some accounting in the corner. And we're not seen as people who can step out there and be in public service and be in politics. And Gary, kudos to you, because you are in fact one of the few elected officials of Filipino descent, and we need more representation, as all of you have spoken about, because representation matters in that fight against racism. When we are teaching that next generation, well, they don't see themselves reflected in those CEO positions, in those elected political positions, and when you don't see yourself there, it's no longer a possibility. And the whole world then is telling you a whole set of other expectations of what you should be and what you should are limitations of what you're capable of. And I think that is so important. I want to ask our MC, Christina, you did some schooling here because you came to Canada at 16.
Yes.
Can you share some of your experiences of not being able to see leaders reflective of the community out there in the different fields in society?
I do have to, I just want to share with everybody that the Filipino group is the fourth largest, most targeted when it comes to anti-Asian hate crimes in Canada. And that's really alarming. The alarming surge of anti-Asian hate is just, it's so heartbreaking, and I agree with all of you. Representation matters. This is the time, now more than ever, to really raise awareness. And Shaun, you asked, like, how can we beat this, earlier. And it's so important to understand how we can become allies, when it comes to anti-Asian racism. And there's so many things we can do as a community. Talking to our children, I think, is so important. Empowering our youth and having them understand the different cultures here in our country. Talking to them about what they think about what's going on. I mean, when my daughter saw, you mentioned, Shaun, the woman getting punched in the face, who happens to be a Filipino in New York City. She was on her way to church, and she was just walking down the street, and a man punched her in the face, and nobody helped her out. I was broken after that video, and my daughter saw that, and why, right? So asking our youth to get their opinion and feelings about what's going on, and helping them understand how they can be allies, and how they can educate themselves as well. Donating is a big part. Supporting our Asian community, like events like this, to help empower the Asian community. Lots of experiences. I went through racism firsthand myself when I first came here. I was called fresh off the boat by actually fellow Asians who were born here. I was called fresh off the boat in high school. And I said, first of all, I didn't come here by boat, I came here by plane. So they didn't call me fresh off the boat. I was fresh off the plane. But so I went through this racism, and it stays on you. It's got such a lasting negative physical and mental impact on somebody. So understanding, maybe talking to our fellow Asian friends, to who have gone through this experience, to find out, how do you feel about that, and what did it do to you? Like, education is key. Going back to everything that Garry and MP Shaun, what you said, importance of teaching ourselves and really awareness of what's going on. So events like this, I really appreciate, because like you said, representation matters, and we need to keep promoting awareness about it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned allies. Norma and Mary Ann, both of you run organizations, and they are prominent organizations representing the Filipino community, but you also involve others. And that is so important, because in this Canadian culture, we share with each other and we form allies, because, as I said earlier, hatred doesn't have any boundaries. It's targeting Muslims, it's targeting people of Jewish faith, it's targeting the Black community, it's targeting the Indigenous, it's targeting Asian communities. We have to stand together as all Canadians in order to reject this hate, because getting rid of just one of those doesn't solve the problem. The question always is, who's next? Can Mary Ann or Norma, can you talk about some of that work you've done in allyship, in building connections with other communities? Mary Ann.
Yes, we just recently, the Filipino Centre, because of course where we are, I think we're more prominent, and there are also other organizations where we are now, and the location where we are. So we were approached by as I said, we're just a small community, but if we unite and make our voice stronger, we're more powerful. And Filipino Centre was approached by the Canadian Chinese CCH to be involved in the anti-Asian hate. And we did. And it's not only the Filipino community, it's a lot of Asian organizations who signed in to be a part of that voice. And so with the many groups joining together, we become a bigger voice to be heard by the community. And I think it is really very important to coalesce with other organizations to make the whole community know that we do not condone hatred like that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Absolutely.
we're all equal.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Norma, do you want to share some of that important work and how that's so important right now in this time when we are all working together to fight anti-Asian racism and all forms of hatred and violence?
Muted.
like, I'm really an advocate of promoting our culture and heritage. And way back in 1998, the Philippines was recognized all over the world when I successfully spearheaded to feature the Philippines in the world stage at the CNE, at the Canadian National Exhibition for 21 days.
Mm-hmm.
We were underdog, but then when we had our entertainment, showcasing our culture and heritage, the music, everything. We gathered our almost 2 million,
Wow.
and it was a history in Canada. We were the first Filipino festival in Canada. And in God's help, I was able to maintain that until today. I think showcasing our culture and heritage is one thing to part of uniting our community, our diverse community, because they want to be entertained, especially during pandemic. People is at home and wants to watch our event.
And that's a bridge to other communities as well, to build those links.
Right, because PIDC is an umbrella of so many organizations.
Right.
You remember that? So we have 21 board of directors. They're all presidents of all of these organizations. And the Mabuhay Festival is the first festival in Canada. First festival in Canada. And we were, I think, recognized as the most influential organization in Canada. And I'm proud of that. But through this,
and it's amazing to hear you speak about that history, Norma, because I feel in some ways that we have for so long used our culture, our diversity, and the various aspects of our histories and sense of identity to unite and bridge those gaps with other communities. And now, unfortunately, we're having conversations about anti-Asian racism, and we're talking about coalitions because we have incidents of a grandma being punched in the face, or people being spat on, and the conversation has shifted. Do you all feel that society has taken a step back, and what is needed now? You know, I can share with you, our government has put in our budget $11 million for Canada Race Relations Foundation to tackle anti-Asian racism, to work on the ground. And some have said more needs to be done. I agree. This issue is so big, and it needs everyone at the table. It's not just the community members or the organizations, but it's all Canadians. So I want to throw out that question. What is next? What is the big challenge ahead of us to get over this period, this really dark period where we are seeing more and more hateful acts and violence against different groups, including Asian communities? What do we need to do as Canadians?
Shaun, thank you for that question, because I've been waiting that you'll be asking that question. You being the MP and a federal level, and I always joke during graduation that when we see each other, I always ask for money, and you say, "No, Garry, I can't give you because education is a provincial portfolio." So here I am, and on Monday I will be knocking at your door first thing to get money for a race relations committee. Right?
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two, and funding is always the key to any initiative, right? We've done many initiatives, but they sputter out because there are grants or one-time thing, like for instance, the PASOK project. And PASOK in Tagalog or Filipino means to enter. So when we had this plenary session with our teachers, and I'm going to share to you what they told me to tell you guys, is that I said maybe the PASOK was not really able to enter. And they were laughing because PASOK means to enter, but the PASOK is not entering the mainstream, right? It just there as like, oh yeah, we had a great project, 2 schools use it, the $15,000 ran out. So what are we gonna do? We have to print 10,000 copies, and only a few Filipino students and teachers were able to see it, right? So here's the recommendation, and I know it's a big one, and I'm going to lay it even further. Maybe you'll be the first MP to table this bill, and lots of discussion. But in other countries, they have a national or federal education administration. or I would say it's like an FBI equivalent for education, right? We don't have that, right? So if you have that, then all education, we're not just fighting province by province. We don't have to wage wars at 10 fronts, but with the National Education Administration, then we would have the ability to fight all this anti-racism, black racism in one shot. And there's a big cooperation between the federal level and the provincial level and down to the municipal city level. And I know these are big dreams and words, but you're the person who would probably be able to achieve that. So that's one thing. And at the education awareness level, the teachers have said, if we want our students to be well represented, like in Catholic schools, 1 in 3. Okay, some of our schools have, I was shocked at this. One of the schools, St. Margaret, has 95% Filipinos of Filipino descent. So I said, I want to see that school. That means only 5% are non-Filipinos, okay, or non-Filipino descent. At Liberman, at Marshall McLuhan, you see the parents coming out. You don't even have to say any language. You just tell them in Filipino, they will respond to you, right? So that's a large number. And in order to reach them, they have proposed these things. One is investment, right? That means dollars and cents in cultural and heritage education, which is linked to what Norma is talking about and what Mary Ann is talking about through key roles in education. So awareness needs funding, right? So
Absolutely.
to go there. So curriculum writers at the provincial and maybe at the federal level. And here's a very ambitious one. Create official curriculum documents for Philippine heritage education as is done with indigenous cultures. So when we hear a mandate from the ministry about indigenous affairs, it is not optional. It is do it or else, right? So there's something that because of the large population and diaspora, that could be one. And here's the second one. Teachers are asking to prioritize to have cultural capital to teach students in the diaspora. Again, dollars and cents, and remove barriers to recertification for Philippine teachers. I've been working with the Philippine Teachers Association. They've been here for 15 years. I was there in their 7th, and now it's their 15th year. And they're still asking for the issues there about how difficult it is for internationally trained teachers, very certified, to go through this process. Because by the time they're done, they're already, what do you call that, spaced out, because they've already done other jobs that are not related to education. So that's one. That's not only for Filipinos, for other foreign trained teachers. The last one is empowering Philippine communities for mentoring and networking, such as this event. So we have to get together through the pillars of our community, like Norma and Mary Ann, and you, of course, with help. I know you're the federal level, and I know you're very much invested in this education because, correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably the only MP that has a very big education background. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Garry. And Monday, I'll be waiting for you. But don't knock on the door. It's going to be a virtual. It's going to be a virtual door. Okay.
So I just virtual backing.
But
Yeah.
I think Trustee Tanuan has touched on an incredible point here, and we all know that constitutionally education and healthcare are under the provincial jurisdiction, but we've actually stepped in. Our federal government is now playing a role in funding directly schools, and I just had the pleasure of recently announcing funding of $6.7 million to 33 schools in our riding, and that money came through our COVID resilience stream from the federal government and went through improved facilities to ensure safety for our students, for our staff, for our teachers, and there's a role that federal government can play. Of course, it does require the cooperation and the collaboration with the province who have the jurisdiction. But what I'm hearing from you, Garry, is that education system really needs to change, and there needs to be more resources to build in inclusion, because you are trying to transform, in some sense, a system that has been developed over many decades, and systemic change, institutional change, we all know is not something that can happen immediately or overnight, but it does require resources and as well without a willingness. There
Yeah.
needs to be voices like yours to acknowledge that that system needs to change. And certainly my door is always open to those ideas. And I think that is so important to engage the youth on education. And I want to turn over to seniors, because I know, Mary Ann, that you are involved with the Toronto Seniors Forum. And we've talked a lot about youth and education, but seniors have been particularly impacted by this pandemic as well. We all saw in the early stages, very unfortunate, the outbreaks in the long-term care centers. And I know our federal government has offered assistance to the provinces in that regard. And there's going to be a lot to learn after this pandemic is over to reflect on what could have been done better. But seniors have suffered a lot. I can tell you, I have parents that are older, and not only was I worried for their safety in terms of COVID, when the news of the grandma being punched on the sidewalk in New York hit the news,
Yeah.
I told my parents, please be careful walking outside. I mean, they were going out for walks and they're going grocery shopping. I said, please be careful. Please have your cell phone in your hand, because we had, in some sense, two viruses. We had the COVID virus and we had the virus of hate. Mary Ann, I want to turn it over to you to talk about seniors and to talk about that work you're doing with the Toronto Seniors Forum.
So let me give you a background of what I do as well, aside from being with the Filipino Centre. In 2017, we did have a study of seniors, Filipino seniors in the Greater Toronto Area, that was finished in 2013. And out of that small group of people, there was an organization formed. It's called FEW, or Filipino Elderly Wellbeing. And then, because they heard about the Toronto Seniors Forum with the City of Toronto, and there was no representation from the Filipino community. So they encouraged me, or they pushed me to apply for that, so that the Filipino seniors would be represented in that. It's an advisory body only to the city of government. So in 2017, I applied for the position. You do go through an interview, and I was accepted. It's not only that I represent the Filipino community, it's also I represent the ward that I'm in, the city ward that I'm in. So anyway, we do have, and I'd like this because we do have a message, the Toronto Seniors Forum. We meet about once a month. It's a virtual meeting, because we want to remind everyone, all levels of government, organizations involved with Filipino seniors. We had a campaign. We started in February 2021. We call that campaign, Show Us That You Care. Because we are calling all levels of government to commit to a more age-friendly approach to their treatment of older adults in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. Because you know about statistics about the death rates among seniors. And let me give you statistics again about Filipino seniors. We don't have very much yet. It was going to take a long time getting the most recent census, but the 2016 census has this: 16.9% of Canada's population is 65 years and over, and that's growing exponentially. Now, I can only say this for the Filipino seniors in Toronto. The population of Toronto, the population in Toronto of Filipinos is 5.7% of that is Filipino. 5.7% of Toronto's population is Filipino. 15.6% of Toronto's population is 65 years and over. That's a big, and it's growing again. 7% of Filipinos in Toronto, 7% of Filipinos in Toronto are seniors. And in the 2013, this is very important because I want all of us to know that. In the 2013 study, seven out of 10 Filipino seniors in the GTA area live in poverty.
Wow.
Wow.
We all know that. We all know that. So a big portion of our seniors, they rely on free or low-cost health and medical services provided by the different community centers.
Wow.
Yes, so what we are doing is we want all levels of government.
And that is just so shocking. I don't know about everyone. I'm listening to these numbers, and it's a vast majority of Filipino seniors living in poverty.
In poverty,
Wow.
7 out of 10. And that was in 2013, 2011 to 2013 when the study was done. It was published in 2013, but they started the study in 2011. So 7 out of 10. Wow.
Mary Ann, how can we help? Like regular people, like our government is obviously there to support. How can regular people
this is
help?
why with all our centers, the community centers, we provide the services. We, especially with seniors, in this pandemic, we were able to connect with the Agent Court, Federation of Community Services. They reached out to us. They reach out to us, especially for seniors in the Scarborough area, because they are not getting calls from the Filipino community.
Wow.
For food banks, for free food service delivery. So they called us. So then we called through our connections. We came up with a list of families who were actually suffering from the pandemic.
Right.
And we gave that list to the AFCA. So for now, anyway, they've all received the first delivery. So we're working on a second delivery for the Scarborough residents. And we at the center as well, because they said they will give priority to Scarborough because this organization is in Scarborough. They also will do deliveries outside of Scarborough. But we said you can drop off the non-Scarborough resident hampers at the center and we will do the delivery. So we called people to do the delivery.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as of the first delivery, we were able to deliver 45 hampers to those who were able to reach out. But there's more than that.
Yeah.
There is more than that. Yeah.
And kudos to Filipino Centre Toronto and to you, Mary Ann, for helping to solve that problem. But to me, there needs to be a broader responsibility of the community, of the governments, of individuals, of social service agencies. There's got to be some more work here, because when we talk about the pandemic hitting certain groups harder than others, you are dealing with not just a seniors community, but a racialized community. And I can bet that there are single seniors there, particularly women, who are even suffering more. And then perhaps immigrant Filipino community members that also have another layer of barriers, maybe language or just community knowledge and know-how. So we're talking about multiple layers of disadvantage. And there has to be something done about this, because the statistic is incredibly shocking. What I'm curious to know, Mary Ann, when you folks reached out to those communities and you were able to then identify that tremendous need, were you able to find out? I mean, you might have been just focused on getting them the food, but were you able to find out and identify what were the specific barriers that prevented those families from getting connected to, because we all know there's a lot of resources out there, but who's accessing it? That's the question.
The main thing is the first barrier. The food bank gives them a call. See, that's another one too. It's the electronic phone. Some of the seniors are not answering their phones, or they're
Right.
sharing a phone with members of their family.
Mhm.
And one barrier which was really difficult was when these people receive a call from a number they're not familiar with, they do not answer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the feedback that we got. We cannot reach these people. So we said, we'll do the calling.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because then our phone calls will register Filipino Centre.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
So
another,
they feel
yeah.
safer when
Yes.
when it's from within the
Yes.
community doing the outreach. And this is exactly why mainstream organizations must partner with community-based organizations.
Yes. Yeah.
And a great model of that is what Scarborough Health Network is doing. And I'll give them a shout out here, because they've actually worked with a number of different local community groups,
Yes.
and they've done
Yes.
these pop-up vaccine clinics. So we
Yes.
had one at the Ismaili temple, we had one at the Hindu temple, the Scarborough Gurdwara hosted one, Islamic Center hosted one, our local schools hosted a whole bunch. Garry, thanks to Garry and the trustees working to get the vaccines in the schools too. So it's just been, we need more of that. We need more examples of that, where larger organizations that are well resourced are going down to community-based organizations to support and work together on this.
Let me thank you, Garry, for the summer jobs. The students are already starting at the center.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is one of their assignment, a must. Call our members.
Mm-hmm.
Call our members, find out if they have had their vaccine yet, the first dose, whatever. And if they are having problems booking an appointment, we will help them out.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
That's
And we were
fantastic.
very lucky. So our Canada Summer Jobs Program this year, we were
Yes.
able to
Yes.
basically double the funding, and FCT, you were a recipient of that. So
Yes.
I'm very happy
Thank
to
you,
do that.
Garry, for that.
And you know, we've had so much great things, and school boards helping to advertise through Garry and our trustees, getting the word out to young people to apply for those jobs. So I really hope that will be a great outcome, Marianne, with the young people doing that outreach.
Can we go back to the seniors? What
Mhm.
I'd
should
love
we be
to.
doing?
I'd love to. The floor is yours, Marianne.
Yeah.
All
Yes.
yours. Go ahead.
Okay, because from our study here, from the Seniors Forum, some of the levels of government, what they have done for our seniors. So the federal budget provided for a 10% increase in old age security for seniors over 70. So Shaun,
Yes.
is that happening soon?
It's in the budget, and it's in the budget, and yes, it is happening, and we're even, you know, we're even putting more, right? We've had the OAS top up, we had the
Yes.
GIS top up. Single seniors are getting more money through in support, and we have a minister of seniors whose job is to look at this, and whatever we can at the federal level to better support seniors is something that we're going to do, because we know how much they have suffered, and we know they have paid the price. They have helped to build this country, and they deserve dignity, and they deserve respect. And I, you know, I have family members who are older adults, and I see firsthand. I know what they get. I know those payments, and I know how challenging that is. You know, especially when we're in a large urban center like Toronto, with incredible prices of housing and cost of living. It's so important, and that's why investing in Canadians and supporting the most vulnerable is truly one of the focus that we have as a government.
Wow.
I think I'll give the floor to
Well, Mary Ann, I have to say, you know, your work is so inspiring. I know the work that you do for Filipino Centre Toronto. I didn't realize that you also work with our seniors, and thank you for everything that you're doing, honestly. While you were speaking, I'm actually chatting with the president of PIDC, Ramon Estaras, to see how we can help, because there's got to be more people on board. I did not know these numbers, and it's heartbreaking.
It is.
Just, you know, imagining even my elderly mom, I can just imagine what if she didn't have any food or any, you know, support from anybody. So we're here to help. And thank you again for the
Thank
work
you.
that you do. That's
Oh,
really inspiring.
we're partnering with the Filipino Hygienist Association. We
Great.
plan to offer a free dental cleaning clinic at the center as soon as we can work out, and we may have to apply for a grant from the government because we do need equipment for that. But
Marianne, you can come see me on Monday after Gary.
You're going to be
and
booked on Monday, Shaun. You're fully booked.
Well,
and that is a free service.
It's
You know
amazing
how
because we have been
dental as
able
well.
to get
Yeah.
a lot of funding for FCT. We were able to secure the 100,000 for the Enabling Accessibility
And
Fund,
yes,
the New
yes.
Horizons Seniors Program. I mean, Marianne, you folks do computer workshops. You do.
Yes.
I remember coming over and watching your painting class,
Yes.
and now you're going to be doing dental cleaning. My goodness, I think you need more. You need a bigger space now.
Oh, one
So-
more. Because of these summer jobs,
Yes.
we're offering a free computer class, one-on-one.
Amazing. And that's powerful because you can also get intergenerational learning.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
It's not one-way learning, it's two-way
Yes,
learning. The young
yes.
people and the
Oh, yes.
elders. It's
Yes.
so incredible.
That's
So with that,
amazing.
we are 3 minutes away from the end of our event, and I don't want to end without saying thank you to all of you. I have to say this has been truly educational,
Yeah.
inspiring, uplifting, and I feel I feel that there's a lot more work to do, but I also feel confident that we have amazing leaders and next generation leaders here to move this project forward. And for all of us as Canadians, as proud Canadians with diverse histories and experiences, to take a strong stance. And whether it's fighting for our youth's education, or fighting for dignity and respect for our seniors, or fighting in general against forms of hatred and discrimination like anti-Asian racism, we can do it. And together we can make it through this horrific experience of a pandemic that we have all endured, and some endured in much more challenging and heartbreaking ways. But let us always remember that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we will make it through to there. So I want to thank all of you for your incredible work, your incredible passion, and I know it's not going to stop, because on Monday I'll be ready for our meetings. And finally, I would like to also thank our MC, Christina, for a fantastic job.
Thank you for
Now
having me.
she was introducing everybody, so maybe I can just tell everybody a bit about Christina. She's actually the editor-in-chief of a national lifestyle publication, and it's called Marquee Magazine. And she herself has been involved in the Filipino community in Toronto for decades, hosting many events. And I that's how I first got to know Christina, when she was emceeing another event and hosting it. And she's also lent her voice for this anti-Asian campaign, anti-Asian racism campaign, that recently co-produced a PSA in partnership with the CCNC. The report I mentioned earlier that was released by CCNC on the rise of anti-Asian racism. So thank you, Christina, for your work.
Thank you.
And your efforts are incredibly much appreciated as well. For those who are wondering, Norma and Christina, I hope it's okay, you are related.
We are.
It's mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
It
Norma's
runs in
the
the family.
reason why I'm very much involved in the community, thanks to her and her leadership. And she's truly an inspiration. So.
Well, thank you so much.
This
to
meeting has
Norma.
been such an inspiration. Thank you, Shaun, for organizing this
Thank
and
you, Shaun.
celebrating our Filipino heritage. It means the world to us, to our community. Sincerely.
It is my honor and pleasure and privilege to do this. And if I can anyway use my platform to celebrate our communities, including our amazing Filipino community. I'm here to do it. And speaking of that, I do want to acknowledge the performers and the people that contributed to the presentations we had earlier. Cheryl, Jennifer, Josie, for that beautiful, amazing singing, as well to Mila and Casa Manila for that video tutorial on adobo chicken. I'm gonna have to replay that sometime this week and give it a shot.
Fun.
I don't know.
Have you tried adobo though?
Yeah, I have. Oh
Oh,
my
you have.
goodness.
Okay.
Yes, I
Just
have.
checking.
And I'm gonna try to perhaps make it myself. Although anytime I do that, I'm not sure. I try, but I'm not sure I always do it justice when I try to cook food that I'm not familiar cooking. I also want to acknowledge my amazing team, Amina, Brenda, Willa, Winnie, and Shaun, who's an intern in my office. Thank you all, because they're doing the hard work behind the scenes. You all don't see them. I just get to
Mhm.
be in front of the camera here. And of course, to all the amazing community members who have joined us live on Zoom and on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this conversation. And I'm thankful that you've joined us virtually, because normally we would have this in person, but we're staying distance, even though I've got my second shot, and I hope many of you have gotten your first and second shots. But of course, our government recognizes that we're in a difficult time, and we've all made sacrifices. So let us all keep going at this and making sure that we continue to support each other through this difficult time, that we have a little love and understanding out there in this world. I think we really need that. I think there's a lot of suffering, and a lot of people are going through really challenging times. You know, we're making great progress. 73% of Canadians have gotten their first vaccine, so that is great news, and we can continue to build on that. So my final message to all of you is to stay safe and stay healthy, and of course, happy Filipino Heritage Month to everyone. Thank you. Let's celebrate, and let's keep making this country even better for Filipinos and for all Canadians. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks, everybody.